Yes, that's right. In today's video, I will be playing through 100 days of Stardew Valley Expanded. Stardew Valley Expanded is a fan-made mod which adds in more NPCs, locations, fish, and a whole heap more to the base game. My ultimate goal is to obtain perfection, of course. However, for the next 100 days, my main goal is to just have fun, which is way less stressful than my last 100 days series, which you should totally check out if you haven't already. If you do enjoy the video, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel, as these videos do take a long time to put together. Plus, it makes you 79.5% cooler. Now that is scientifically proven, don't look it up. And let's just get into the 100 days. Day 1, I arrived at my new and improved looking farm and really just took in the scenery. With Stardew Valley Expanded comes a whole new farm called Grandpa's Farm, which I'm sure I'll acquaint myself with as I get further down the road. But for now, I planted my parsnip seeds into the ground and got to chopping down trees to make myself a chest. I then ventured into town where I met some familiar and unfamiliar faces. Victor and Olivia were two new characters who both lived in what I can only describe as a very, very big house. I mean, come on, they have a library, a TV room, and a sitting room. My farmhouse only has one room. I then continued venturing around the valley where I came across Sophia at Blue Moon Vineyard. I tried heading further east but got stuck on an invisible wall, so I may have to come back later. Over at Pierre's, I bought myself an extra 27 parsnip seeds before heading back to the farm, but I got stuck behind some rocks without my pickaxe. So one detour later and I was back at the farm planting and watering the rest of my parsnips. To finish the day off, I cleared some debris from around my crops and headed to bed. I emerged on day 2 to another lovely day in the valley. So I watered all of my parsnips, grabbed enough wood to make myself a chest, and headed on down to the beach. An old looking marina named Willie offered me his old fishing rod, so I decided to take it and took it up to the mountain lake to do some fishing for the day. I popped my chest down and got comfy. I then spent the rest of the day catching fish, as to be honest, there isn't too much to do when you first start in Stardew Valley. Instead, I just enjoyed the sound of the nature around me. That was until that night I passed out at 2 AM. Day 3 was a guaranteed rainy day, which meant I didn't have to worry about watering any crops today. So with that extra energy, I popped down to the river to try and catch me some catfish. But I ended up failing to catch any, so I sulked my way up to the mountain lake where I kept on fishing. My goal here was to stockpile all of my fish and to get to level 5 fishing, where I could choose the Fisher perk. This increases the price of fish you sell by 25%, that way I can sell them all for a whole lot more. So I continued to fish until I passed out that night at 2 AM. The rain had eased on day 4, so it was back to watering my parsnips, and fishing of course. I fished all the way to about 8 PM. Afterwards, I made a few trips back and forth to the farmhouse to bring back as much stuff as I could. I had my fingers crossed that I had caught enough fish to get myself to level 5 fishing, and as I passed out at 2 AM, again, I had managed to get to level 5 fishing, so I chose the Fisher perk. Day 5 started out with dumping all of my fish into the shipping bin and reading the mail. I had received my 3rd letter about someone saving me after passing out, and I was starting to worry about my image around town. But who cares about that when you have parsnips to harvest? I shipped most of them off, but kept a few for a bit of energy because today we were going on an expedition. That's right, today the mines open up and I'm gonna go cave diving. Of course, being in the expanded mod, the mines have moved from where they usually are. I met an old looking miner who offered me his old rusty sword. I popped down my chest and I dove into the mines. I wasn't too worried about getting as far down as I could. I was mainly hoping to get as much copper as I could. Specifically enough for a furnace and 5 copper bars. I did end up getting down to level 10 and I think I had just enough copper for what I wanted. Just before bed, I popped some valuables I had found from my expedition into the shipping bin just for a little bit of extra cash, and I called it in for the night. Clint paid me the morning of day 6 to give me a blueprint for a furnace. What a nice guy. I then smelted 5 copper bars and headed into town. I met up with Mayor Lewis, who showed me around the old community center. It was going well until I started seeing this cheeky yet adorably cute little guy who made me look a bit crazy. Not a good start in the valley considering I've needed help 3 times after passing out at 2 AM already. Anyway, the reason I wanted 5 copper bars was for the simple fact that I wanted a pickaxe upgrade. So over at Clint's I did exactly that. I'll just have to wait a couple of days until it's ready though. I paid a visit to Pierre's afterwards where I splashed the rest of my gold on 135 potato seeds. Pierre didn't know what had hit him, and neither did my wallet. Then for the rest of the day I spent it setting up an area for all of my potatoes until bedtime. Day 7 I was up at the crack of dawn watering all of my potatoes. And let me tell you, there are a lot of potatoes. I made my way over to the old looking wizard who offered me a taste of his weird potion. One potion up the nostril later and I was able to read the ancient language of Junimo. A bit unorthodox if you ask me, but hey, here we are. And then it was back to fishing up at the mountain lake for the day. With my pickaxe out of action for another day, I thought it would be best to stock up on fish for energy before I hit the mines again. And yeah, I ended up fishing for the rest of the day. But just before bed, I did take all of my mining resources up to my chest in the mines so I wouldn't have to worry about doing it later. It was day 8 and I was back to watering potatoes. Someone remind me next time not to buy so many damn potatoes. Before heading to the mines for the day, I passed by Clint to pick up my newly upgraded copper pickaxe. Ooh, so shiny. And then I hit the mines for the day. My aim was to get to level 40 before the 13th so that I could make myself some sprinklers. That way, when I get my hands on some strawberry seeds from the egg festival, I won't have to worry about watering them all. I continue down and... hold on. Is that a... no. It can't be. Oh my god, it is. It's an ancient seed. Now for those who haven't played a lot of Stardew Valley before, the ancient seed is an artifact. Passing it on to Gunther at the museum, in return he'll give you a plantable ancient seed back to you. Now these plants take 28 days to grow, but they grow in all seasons except winter. And you get a fruit every 7 days once the plant is fully grown. Then if you put the fruit into a keg and wait 6 days, you'll get ancient fruit wine, which is probably one of the most profitable items in the whole game. So, long story short, I was very excited. To round the day out, I managed to get all the way down to level 25 before returning home to bed. Day 9 started out with some more watering. I swear to Christ, if it doesn't rain and I have to painstakingly water all of these potatoes, I'm gonna be so mad. And then it was back to the mines for the rest of the day. I gained another 10 levels, putting me on level 35 by the end of the day. Just before bed, I decided to use up the rest of my energy clearing some more area around my crops just in case. Marnie visited me the morning of day 10 with the goodest looking boy I've ever seen. Of course I said yes to adopting him and named him my new best friend Samson. As cute as he was though, it's too bad he can't water crops because I'm getting sick of this. Then just like yesterday, I returned back to the mines for the day. I did have a riveting chat with Marlon though. I mined my way down to level 45 collecting iron and other materials as I went before calling it in for the night. Day 11 and yeah, you already know what I'm doing first. Having spent the last 3 days down in the mines, I was after a change of scenery, so I took my spring forageables off to the community center and completed my first bundle. Afterwards, I kinda just explored around the expanded valley. I hadn't taken much time to really look around the different areas. Back up at the Adventurers Guild, I found a hidden grave by a waterfall. I passed Sophia at Bloom Moo Vineyard, and found Vincent and Jazz playing around by the sewer, which is definitely not hygienic at all. I paid a visit to Andy's farm and found out he's a Joja fanboy, and also a bit of a slob. Down in the Cindersap forest, I found my way into a huge clearing where I stumbled across Aurora Vineyard. From the rundown fields and decrepit house, I think I can safely say no one has been here in a while. I did find a strange doll, some old newspaper, and what I assume is a bankruptcy notice, but I'm sure at some point I'll be able to bring this old vineyard back to its former glory. But right now, I don't think I'm doing squat about it, except getting lost in the woods. That's right, I spent a solid 3 minutes running around trying to get out of this damn forest. But I did manage to find my way out, and I went back home to sleep. My potatoes were ready to harvest on day 12 and I couldn't be more happier to not have to water them. I shoved them all into the shipping bin, I kept 10 for some extra energy though, and I spent most of the day carrying everything from my chest in the mines and back to the farm. And when I say most of the day, I mean it. After 3 trips there and back, it was already 3 PM. And what did I do for the rest of the day, you ask? I smelted ores. Yep, that's about it. But overnight I did get myself level 5 farming where I chose the tiller perk, which makes crops worth 10% more. Day 13 was the egg festival day and I spent the morning doing some big brain calculations. Mainly I was just working out how many strawberry seeds I could afford and how many sprinklers I would need for them. But math is hard, so I got my tools out and started clearing out some more debris for a bit. Over in town at the egg festival, I stopped by Pierre's stall to buy myself 80 strawberry seeds and then decided to have a chat with every single villager. I then started up the egg hunt and I won't lie, I didn't know Expanded changed the location of the eggs, so I was a bit thrown off. But of course, being a highly talented Stardew Valley player, I adapted on the fly and still bet everybody, getting myself a beautiful straw hat for my efforts. I went to bed that night and I dreamt about how awesome I am. Day 14, I started my day waiting for Pierre's to open, but it's okay, as you all know, I'm a very patient person. I did get to meet a new villager called Claire, and meeting her went very well. I definitely did not bonk her on the head. Finally, I was led into Pierre's and I bought myself a parsnip seed, potato seed, green bean seed, and a cauliflower seed, as these were needed to complete the spring crops bundle. Back over in the mines, I spent the rest of day 14 resetting level 40 and 20 to farm for copper and iron, as I still needed quite a lot for my sprinklers, and by the night time I had more than enough to make enough sprinklers. Day 15 I just spent smelting my ores into bars. Yep, that's not a joke, I was smelting ores until the late afternoon. But with my sprinklers ready to go, I started my setup. I hadn't used normal sprinklers in a while, so it took me a while to nail down the pattern. But it got too late, so the morning of day 16 I finished off placing all of my sprinklers, planted my strawberries and spring crops, and it was looking pretty good. I'll never have to water another crop again, and I am so happy. I paid Gunther a visit at the museum and dropped off a couple of artifacts, including my ancient seed, which I took back home and planted next to my spring crops. For the rest of the day, I just cleared out some more area around the farm and stared longingly across my field of strawberries, admiring my beautiful handiwork, I assume. And then I headed off to bed. Day 17, I was passing through town and found Morris outside of Pierre's waving around some Joja pamphlets. Not cool, Morris. Not cool. I was, however, on my way down to Willie's so that I could get myself the fiberglass rod. For today, I was fishing for community center fish. From the ocean, I got a sardine. Over in the river, I fished myself up a sunfish. And up at the mountain lake, I caught a largemouth bass, chub, carp, and a bullhead. I still needed to catch a bream, but since they were not catchable until a bit later on, I filled my time by foraging for salmon berries around the farm. It finally got late enough for me to catch one, and then I dropped off all of my catches to the community centre, after which I went to bed after a hard day's fishing. Day 18, I continued with my salmon berry picking around the valley. I did pop by Andy's to say hi. I really gotta stop doing that. I found Lewis up by the mountains having a grump about Jojamart being responsible for the rockfall blocking the pathway up to the railway. He did mention another villager called Susan who resides up there, who is unfortunately stuck there at the moment. But I couldn't do much about it, so sorry Susan, it was back to salmonberry picking. For the rest of the day, I used up my energy clearing more debris out from my farm before getting some sleep. Andy paid me a visit the morning of day 19 to warn me about crows. But I've taken precautionary measures to make sure my crops don't get eaten, so thanks, but no thanks. I took a stroll through town and over to the museum where I had to wait, and oh boy do I love waiting. And I dropped off another artifact to Gunther. Up at Robin's, I returned her lost axe I found yesterday while berry picking, and then I hit up the mines. I was doing so well, I had made it down to level 53, and then while trying to eat a salmon berry, I accidentally backed up to the ladder and left the mines. I decided it was getting too late to go back down and try again, so back on the farm I used my remaining energy to clear some more debris until bed. Day 20, despite my unfortunate early exit from the mines yesterday night, I was back there today determined to dive down even further. I spent the whole day in the mines. I even managed to swap out my wooden club with a crystal dagger, a major and much needed upgrade of weapon. By the end of the day I had reached level 67 and I headed back home just before it got too late. Day 21, the rain was pouring down, which meant I had some more community center fish to catch. I ventured down to the river where I caught myself a catfish and a shad. I popped by Gunther again and handed over another dwarvish scroll where I was rewarded with some cauliflower seeds. A bit too late to plant them now, but hey, thanks anyway, Gunther. Up at the community center, I handed over the catfish and the shad to go towards the river fish bundle. But I wasn't finished just yet. I had one more fish to catch, which was the eel. You can only catch it in the rain and after 4 PM, so I spent a while on the pier waiting to hook it. After a while, I finally managed to catch one, and I passed by the community center to hand it in before heading home and eventually to bed. Demetrius popped by the farm the morning of day 22, offering to do something with my cave. My farm cave, of course, get your heads out of the gutter. So I said I wanted fruit bats, meaning my cave would fill up with free fruit. I mainly chose this option over the mushrooms to help with the community center bundles. But anyway, it was back to the mines today and I was putting my crystal dagger to good use. I managed to get all the way down to level 80 and I upgraded my dagger once again to a bone sword, which I think I enjoy using a lot more anyway. But with having reached level 80 where gold always spawns, and summer just around the corner, I farm for gold for the rest of the day. This is because I want to make quality sprinklers heading into summer, which requires gold bars to make. Normal sprinklers are fine, but I don't want to look poor, you know? I returned home with my haul of goodies, put them away in my chest, and I headed to bed. Overnight, I managed to get to level 5 mining, so I opted to go with the miner perk, which adds 1 ore per vein I mined, which is very handy to have in the early game. Day 23, the rain was once again pouring down, so to avoid getting my beautiful hair wet, I headed back to the mines where, you guessed it, I farmed for more gold. And also, how did this frog get down here? Running back home felt quite moody with all of this fog, and with a bit of time time left in the day, I decided to take some materials over to the community center and complete the construction bundle, which opened up the boiler room and the vault. And just before bedtime, I cleared out some more of the farm. Day 24, my first strawberry harvest was ready to go, so I picked them all and dumped them straight into the shipping bin. Afterwards, I gathered up everything I needed to complete every bundle in the boiler room and headed into town. But before I could do that, Leia showed me the community garden, which I think is very wholesome. I dropped off all of my goodies to the boiler room plaque, which completed it, meaning that starting from tomorrow, I will have the minecarts to help me get around a lot easier. I even got a couple of goodies back for completing all 3 bundles, and since I was in the mood for some more community center completion, I took a few more things from my chest to hand in, and then it was back to the mine grind where I spent the rest of the day resetting level 80 and farming for more gold. Overnight, the Junimos performed a sick-ass dance number which unlocked the minecarts for me. It was day 25, and from my many trips down in the mines, I had gathered up quite a horde of geodes. So over at Clint's, I had him break them all open for me, after which I donated a bunch of new undiscovered minerals to Gunther at the museum. I repeated the process once again since I ran out of inventory space the first time. Then back on the farm, I remembered my mining chest was full of stuff I could donate, so I hauled them back to Gunther, who was honestly probably having a field day watching all of these donations roll in. I gathered up my rewards and I headed back to the farm to drop them off. Down at the beach, I used some spare wood to repair the bridge over to the tide pools and did some foraging. Back on the farm, I spent the rest of the night smelting ores and clearing some more debris off the farm. Mayor Lewis popped by the morning of day 26 just to check up on me, and I think that's lovely. All I did today was clear out more of the farm and smelt ores into bars for those quality sprinklers I wanted to have for summer. And yeah, that's about it really. Day 27 provided with a bit more excitement because I was back in the mines. This time I was resetting level 20 looking for copper as I was running a bit short. By the afternoon I had gotten quite a lot of copper, so I headed down to the museum once again where I donated a rusty spur. Up at Robbins I bought myself a whole heap of pathway crafting recipes because I wanted to spice up my farm a little bit, which is what I spent the rest of the night doing. You know, usually I go for stone walkways, and if you've seen my other How Far Can I Get in 100 Days series, then you'll know fully well that I love my stone walkways. So I decided to challenge myself and I went with the wooden walkways just to change it up a wee bit. And honestly, I was pretty happy with the final results. This walkway will head up to my hub area, and this is where I'll put my chests and my furnaces. I'm a big fan of the stone pathways in between the wooden paths though. Man, I'm so good at decorating. Day 28 was the final day of spring. My spring crops had grown just in time. Talk about cutting it close. So I took them over to the community center where I completed the spring crops bundle. Back on the farm, it was the second and final strawberry harvest, so I went along and picked my berries. Being the impatient person that I am, I took them straight to Pierre's so I could have my gold now, because I want it now. Also, Morris came into the store and gave everyone more Joja coupons, which was a real kick in the teeth to Pierre considering he's outside every morning waving them around anyway. What a dick. Anyway, I spent the rest of the day building my hub area and moving everything over, where I got to reorganize all of my chests. You know, I don't think there's anything more satisfying. I added some torches around for light and I headed to bed ready for summer. Day 29, I walked outside, smelled the sweet summer air, and got to work. I went about removing my sprinklers and upgraded to some quality sprinklers. I popped by Pierre's to get myself 16 melon seeds with 16 fertilizer, 96 blueberry seeds, and the final backpack upgrade. It did then occur to me I had forgotten to purchase my summer crop bundle seeds, so one walk of shame back to Pierre's again, and I had everything I needed. Back on the farm, I got to watering and planting my seeds. The melons and fertilizer I need for the quality crops bundle. The summer crops are obviously for the summer crops bundle, and the blueberries are going to be my main source of income for the summer. After a hard day's work setting up my crop area, I went to bed and dreamed about how awesome I am. Day 30, I woke up and checked to make sure I had set everything up right, and it was looking pretty good. I visited my fruit cave for the first time and cleared out a bunch of fruit before heading on over to Pierre's to get a poppy and a sunflower seed, as they're 2 flowers I'll need for community center bundles. Back on the farm, I started to lay out plans for a big old tree farm. Now, it wouldn't be a Stardew playthrough with Poxiel if I didn't have a tree farm, now would it? I plan to fill up this first area with all oak trees and tap them with tappers for a whole bunch of oak resin. This is because I'm gonna need a lot of it for keg making when I eventually fill my farm with more ancient fruit. And then I kinda just ran around the valley for a while. Don't ask me why I did, I just did. I did try very hard to hop on the swing, but unfortunately I don't think that's possible. Before bed I added some more acorns to the tree farm and headed to sleep. It was day 31 and I was woken up to a loud explosion. Before I could go investigate though, Susan paid me a visit. Now she was the one stuck behind the rockfall, which is now cleared. I'll go and pay her a visit soon, I think. I managed to find the cause of said explosion last night, and yeah, It's a big old meteor, but it's across the river, so I'll deal with that later. I then spent an hour waiting outside Clint's, which is my favorite thing to do, as you all know. Once inside, I put my axe in for a copper upgrade, and then I ventured up to the railway to visit Susan on the Emerald Farm. Now don't get me wrong, Susan, I love kegs too, but that is the most inefficient way to lay them out. I mean, you can't even reach the ones in the back. She's obviously not a pro farmer like I am. I moved on from Emerald Farm and explored a little bit further north and came across a graveyard with a couple of goodies. They're probably cursed, but hey, what's the worst that could happen? Back in town, I found Pierre and Morris having a lover's quarrel. Let's be real, we shipped them though. And then I dropped off my summer forageables to the community center, completing another bundle. For the rest of the day, I hit up the mines collecting copper and any other materials I could get my hands on. I passed by the Adventurers Guild to see what was up, and then I headed to bed. Day 32 I spent back in the mines collecting iron, resources, and slaying monsters. And yeah, that's about it. Day 33, I braved the rain and headed on over to the museum to drop off another dwarf scroll I had found before picking up my shiny new copper axe from Clint's. Wasting no time at all, I put my freshly upgraded axe to work cutting down trees in the Cindersap forest, which with the expanded mod adds a whole buttload more trees. Super handy for when I'm trying to make 400 kegs later on. Back on the farm, I added a few more acorns to my tree farm and ventured down to the traveling cart where I bought myself a rare seed. This is so in fall I can grow it and get myself a star drop, which I totally remembered to do, by the way. That is something I definitely remembered to do. But I thought it would be better to get it now in preparation, and then I headed off to bed. Day 34, I turned a whole heap of bug meat into bait, loaded it up onto my fishing rod, and headed out for a bit of fishing. At the mountain lake, I caught a sturgeon, and down on the pier, I caught a bunch of fish. Most importantly, a tuna, a tilapia, and a pufferfish. I dropped off my catches to the community center. By evening time, I was back to chopping down trees for more wood, and I made a start on decorating more of the farm by adding some grass and pine tree seeds. I said goodnight to Samson and I headed to bed myself. Overnight, I reached level 5 foraging, so I went with the Forester perk, which drops 25% more wood when chopping down trees. And with all the trees with the expanded mod brings, I'll have no excuse for not having enough wood. It was day 35, and on this beautiful summer's day, I decided to expand my tree farm a bit. I thought this side of it could house maple and pine trees with tappers on them for pine tar and maple syrup. So I chipped away at it, and by the afternoon I was pretty happy with the layout, so I added in my tree seeds. I then popped by piers to get some more grass starter, which I placed around my hub area. The rest of the night, however, I spent it down in the mines slaying monsters and collecting resources. I found an infested floor on level 21, so I kept resetting it for slime kills, which is an extra fun bonus fact for you. If you find an infested floor and reset it, then it'll always be an infested floor, but just for that day. Day 36, I was contemplating the loneliness of being a farmer and dreamed of having some friends. So I cleared out one of these massive fenced areas where I planned to have some animal friends join me on my farm. Of course, it wouldn't be a farm without a space for machines, so I made this little spot for them and fenced it off, which I think looks really nice. I no joke spent all day on this, but it was worth it because I don't want to be so lonely anymore.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never
I spent the morning of day 37 contemplating what to do for the day. But then I decided a good use of my time could be spent collecting gold and resources, so that is exactly what I did. By the late afternoon, I was bored of the mine, so I spent the rest of my energy chopping down trees for wood before calling it an early night. Day 38, my poppy and sunflower were all growing up, so I picked them and headed on over to the community center to drop them off. Down in the mines is where I spent most of the day though, collecting resources and slaying monsters. It wasn't until later on that night I was lucky enough to receive a second ancient seed. I continued grinding away in the mines until late, and I headed back home to sort my inventory and plant my second ancient seed. Day 39, I started out my day by finding a chicken statue artifact. And today was the Valley Luau. But seeing as there was a whole nother area to the west of the valley, I decided to see if I could catch any cool fish I hadn't caught yet from this bridge. I did catch a minnow, which is a tiny little fish. I mean, look how cute it is. But it was time for the luau, so I grabbed a gold quality spice berry and headed on down to the beach. I chucked it into the potluck soup and hoped the mayor liked it.
Where's the lamb sauce?
Nah, just kidding, he liked it. When I left though, it was already 10 PM, meaning I had been on the beach for a whole 10 hours. What could I have possibly been doing for 10 hours? You know what? Let's just move on. Day 40, on my way into town that morning, I came across another good looking boy called Dusty. Of course, I gave him some pats. Over at the museum, I handed my chicken statue over to Gunther and headed on down to the beach to do some foraging. I did manage to dig up a starfish, so I went back to Gunther's to donate it. I set myself up on the pier and decided to do some fishing for the day. I then fished up an anchor, so back to Gunther's I went to donate it. I then managed to fish up an ornamental fan, so back to Gunther's I went to donate it. I did fish up another type of starfish, who I will admit looks very cute. But it was getting late, so back on the farm I organized my stuff back into my chest, dumped my fish into the shipping bin, put some iron into my furnaces, and called it a night. Day 41, my melons were ready for harvest. I went along and picked them all, I dumped them into the shipping bin, and I kept 5 for the bundle. I headed into town where I dropped off the melons to the community center and got enough melons to replant back on the farm, just for some extra cash. I popped by Robin's to purchase myself a coop, which I placed in my new animal area, and I was that much closer to having some friends on my lonely farm. But there was no time to wallow in despair, so I dived into the mines to slay monsters and collect more resources. I spent the rest of the day there, and just before it got too late, I headed home to drop off my spoils and go to bed. It was day 42 and my blueberries were finally ready to harvest. So I went along and picked them all. And my summer crops were ready to be harvested too, so I picked them as well. I journeyed into town where I found Demetrius by the fountain and he decided to give me a quick history lesson about the valley. I agreed, but make this quick man, I got shit to do. After that invigorating talk, I completed the summer crops bundle in the community center, sold my blueberries to Pierre and put my axe in for an iron upgrade at Clint's. Down on the beach, I did a bit of foraging before heading up the mines again for gold, resources and slaying monsters, which is exactly what I did until bedtime. Day 43, I was straight back to the mines and resetting level 40 for more iron and stuff, which is pretty much where I spent the whole day. Day 44, my very first ancient fruit was ready to be picked. Look at it in all its glory. My axe was also ready to be collected, so I stopped by Clint's to pick it up. I put it to good use by opening up the secret woods, which can only be accessed with an iron axe. And my goodness me, this area has been vastly expanded, which is fantastic for collecting hardwood. I managed to find some new forageables, including a poison mushroom, a 4-leaf clover, and some red baneberry. I found the old Master Cannoli statue, but spent way too long trying to get to him through this little maze thing. I honestly didn't even make it to him, I just gave up. Defeated, I slowly made my way back to the farm from the secret woods. Good to know I can easily access it from the farm though. I did some reorganizing of chests before heading to bed early. Was I embarrassed by today's events? Yes. Do I want to talk about it? No. I started off day 45 by getting myself a barn from Robin's, which I placed next to my coop. I then cleared out the trees from the backwoods as I was trying to make up for all the wood I had just spent on the barn. I then continued my tree chopping rampage down into the cindersap forest and ended up chopping trees for the rest of the day. Day 46 was another round of blueberries ready for harvest, so I got to picking. I headed straight to Pierre's, but of course I had to wait outside. I sold all my blueberries to him, where I made a pretty penny off of them all, and using some of my newfound wealth, I put my pickaxe in for a steel upgrade. I then went for a walk around the valley where I stumbled into Sophia at Blue Moon Vineyard again, who kindly gave me a quality sprinkler. I fished down at the river for a bit before getting bored and heading up to the mountain lake for a change of scenery. Although Abigail was there for a while and kinda just stared into the distance for ages. You know, I wonder what she was looking at. Back on the farm, I dropped my fish into the shipping bin and decided to head to bed. Day 47, I popped by Marnie's to get myself some chicken friends for the farm. I called one Doug and the other June. I love them and they will be my friends forever. I did lose them for a bit though because they're tiny, so I had to follow the moving grass to find them. I then made a few tappers to put on some of my trees that had grown over in the tree farm and headed on down to the traveling cart to see what was for purchase. Nothing good as usual, so thanks for nothing. For the rest of the day, I swung my axe around chopping trees in the cindersap forest for wood, which took me all the way to sleep time. The morning of day 48 started out with some peaceful foraging on the beach. I even found a sand dollar. And I got my new and improved steel pickaxe from Clint's. And then it was time to hit the mines again, but this time I was heading for the bottom. On floor 90, I got myself the obsidian edge sword, and by the end of the day, I had made it all the way down to level 100, where I discovered my first star drop. Star drops increase your overall energy, and there are 7 to collect. So 1 down, 6 to go. Day 49, I started my day breaking rocks and saying hello to my new friends June and Doug. With my barn now complete, I paid Marnie a visit and bought myself another other friend, Fergie the cow. She was a little shy at first, but I'm sure she'll warm up to me. Over at Clint's, I popped my hoe in for a copper upgrade and headed back to the farm where, yes, this is controversial, but I tore the wooden paths down. I know, I said I always use stone paths, but there's a reason for that, and I was not warming to the wooden paths one bit. So for the rest of the day, I worked on the exterior remodel. I didn't have enough time yesterday to finish it, so I continued to work on day 50 to finish it off. And after painstakingly putting all of my chests back in place after moving them, I was much happier with how it looked. I took a quick pause in my creative stride to harvest some blueberries, and then I was right back to it. I won't lie, I had some real trouble working out a furnace area. I had literally changed it about 5 times, so if you see it change, just know at some point it'll all work out. But after 2 days of work, this is what I had come up with, and I am much happier with how this looks. You see, stone walkways never let me down. Day 51, another ancient fruit had grown, so I picked it and put it away for safekeeping. I popped by Clint's, and I got my copper hoe and swapped it out for a watering can upgrade. I popped by Robin's to get myself a barn upgrade, but I forgot it was Tuesday, so... I swear every time I walk into Robin's for something, it's a Tuesday. The one day she doesn't work because she goes to Pilates. Feeling sad and stupid, I headed into the forest to commit heinous acts of deforestation by chopping down all the trees for wood. But they grow back, so it's okay. Back on the farm that evening, I wanted to see what stone pathways around the tree farm would look like, and yeah, I quickly got rid of them and I just headed to bed. Day 52, I waited very patiently for Robin's to open, and I finally got my barn upgrade. Afterwards, I headed up to the mines where I spent the rest of the day around level 20 farming for copper as I was running low and I needed lots of tappers for my tree farm. Day 53, I said hello to Fergie, June, and Doug and popped by Clint's to pick up my watering can. Afterwards, it was back to the mines and back to the grind. This time, I was mining around level 40. This was so I could collect iron for kegs and slay dust sprites for coal. Not to mention dust sprite kills to get the burglar's ring. Now, the burglar's ring is a ring that increases mob drop rates, and it is a super useful ring to have. But you need 500 dust sprite kills, so it'll take a bit of time. I ended up spending the whole day in the mines. I ended up with 176 iron ore, so hey, it's not a bad effort if you ask me. The rain was once again pouring down on day 54, but my blueberries and melons were ready to harvest, so I didn't mind. I did make some lightning rods because there was thunder in the air, and I hoped it would strike a few of them to get me some batteries. In the meantime, I popped by Gunther at the museum and donated the last dwarf scroll, which gave me the dwarvish translation guide, meaning I could now understand the dwarf and the mines. Not that I've really spoken to him before anyway, so. I took a quick detour down to the beach and did some foraging before fishing for a red snapper, which I caught first go. It was the last ocean fish I needed, so I took it up to the community center and completed another bundle. I once again changed up my furnace area by adding in more. I swear it's like Poxsteel. Make up your damn mind already. And I was one short too. So what did I do? I changed it, of course. No, that's not quite right. Okay, that's a little better. Day 55, I think I was getting closer to the perfect furnace area, so I worked on that for a bit. By late morning, I had this, and I was digging this a lot more than the other one. Clearly, I was in a decorative mood today because I took some tree seeds and planted them around to spice up my hub area a bit. I then paid Marnie a visit and got Fergie a new friend, Bumbo the goat. I popped by Pierre's to get myself some grass starter, and back on the farm, I laid it all down. For the rest of the night, I kinda just potted around the farm, smelting quartz until bedtime. Day 56 was the final day of summer. I started my day off with a quick trip up to Robin's where I purchased myself a coop upgrade. Then I gathered some exotic foraging items and completed another bundle over at the community center. That afternoon, I extended my farm area with another 8 sprinklers as I was gearing up for the fall season. And to pass some time, I chopped trees down for wood around the cindersap forest. I stayed up way past my bedtime to attend seeing the Moonlight Jellies, but when you have a banger track like this, how can you say no? welcome to fall. It's now day 57, and as you would expect on the first day of a new season, I got to sorting out my crops. I prepped the crop area by getting rid of old plants, hoeing the ground and watering it. I popped by Pierre's to get 16 corn seeds and then went all out on pumpkin seeds, as I planned to put them into kegs to make some more cash in the long run. Usually I'd go for cranberries, but our budget doesn't allow for that just yet. I did also get 16 fertilizers so that I can guarantee 5 gold quality corn for the quality crops bundle. Back on the farm I got to planting and got some chores done before heading down to the Cindersnap forest to chop some wood for the rest of the day. Day 58, another ancient fruit was ready for harvest, so I picked it and stored it away. Seeing as I had some animal friends now, I thought it would be nice to have a path through the top of my animal area, so I spent a bit of time working on that. Speaking of animals, since Robin had finished my coop upgrade, I paid Marnie another visit to purchase myself Roger the Duck. And I got some hay while I was there. But then back on the farm, Marnie decided to come and visit me, where she told me animals won't actually wander out of the fenced areas anyway. Too little too late, Marnie. Too little too late. Over in town, I found Robin and Lewis putting up the special quest board, and I can't wait to get into work on some of those soon. It then dawned on me I hadn't bought my fall crops yet, so I quickly ran to Pierre's before he closed to get them. And back on the farm, I planted them around my sprinkler. I wasn't done there though, as I managed to find a hazelnut, so off I went to the community centre where I completed the fall foraging bundle. And for good measure, I completed the crab pot bundle too, which rewarded me with a few crab pots. So down at the beach, I set up my crab pots and did some foraging, and then I finally went to bed. Day 59, I went around saying hello to all of my animal friends before spending the day committing heinous acts of deforestation once again. But it's okay because they grow back. And I was collecting wood for Robin's special quest, which I think I picked up yesterday. While I was there, I picked up a mushroom colony, and then I went back to chopping trees, which I did for the rest of the day. Day 60, I woke up to a letter from Robin congratulating me on obtaining 1,000 wood, and it had blueprints for a stone chest. A few more trees had grown in my tree farm, so I put some of that wood I gathered yesterday to good use by tapping more trees, which did use up quite a lot of my copper, and since I was running low, I hit up the mines for the rest of the day to replenish some of it. I even got my hands on another ancient seed artifact, which I can turn into a plantable ancient seed and save for later. I started day 61 doing some chores around the farm, saying hello to animals, smelting ores and making some machines for animal products. I then ventured into the secret woods to gather up some more hardwood and forageables, but I was after danger, and what better way to get that than down in the mines? I had my sights set on the bottom again, and that's where I started to head. By the end of the day, I had managed to reach level 110, where I picked up some snazzy purple boots. I continued my journey to the bottom of the mines on day 62, and by the early afternoon I had cruised my way down to level 120, where I received the key in the shape of a skull. I'm sure I'll find out what that's for later on. Back on the farm I did some organizing of chests and kinda just ran around aimlessly, so I decided to call it in early for the night and get some sleep. Day 63, it was raining, and I had the intention of catching some more fish for the community center. I perched up by the river and fished until I had both a tiger trout and a walleye. It took a while, but by the late afternoon I had both, so I ran them up to the community center where I handed them in to complete the night fishing bundle and river fish bundle, which just left the specialty fish bundle to complete the fish tank. Back on the farm, I shipped away my other catches and again wandered around the farm aimlessly. Now look, I like to think I'm being productive and planning stuff out in my head, but I honestly cannot remember, so I'm just gonna go with that. Day 64, I was on a mission to complete the animal bundle, but I needed a large cow's milk and goat's milk, so off to Marnie's I went to get the milk pail. But for some reason, she wasn't in today. I even checked her little shed and nope, still not there. Ah, never mind, I found her. She's just down there. Oh well, I guess I'll just have to come back another time. I passed by the special quest board to pick up Clint's Cave Patrol quest, which tasked me to slay 50 bats, and then took the minecart up to the mines. I then spent the rest of day 64 all the way to day 68 down in the mines around level 40. That is no joke, and if you're wondering why I was down there for so long, I'll elaborate. I had a few things I wanted to achieve. I wanted to complete Clint's special quest, I wanted to slay 500 dust sprites for the burglar's ring, and I needed to get a ton of coal. The only other noteworthy things that happened were on day 66, a witch came along and gave me a void egg, which I put into incubation, and on day 67 I made my first lot of kegs, which I placed down below my crops. But it all paid off because on the afternoon of day 68 I emerged from the mines after 4 days in a row victorious. Not only had I managed to slay 500 dust sprites, but I had slain 50 bats and completed Clint's special quest. Also, I had slain 200 bats, completing another monster slayer goal, not to mention all the resources I had gathered. I walked into the Adventurers Guild, I took my rewards, and I headed home. That afternoon, I stopped by the travelling cart, who was once again selling nothing of interest. Then for the rest of the night, I chopped trees in the pouring rain, which I won't lie was a nice change of pace from 4 straight days in the mines. It was funny number day and I finally remembered to buy the milk pail and shares from Marnie, which I took back to the farm and I used on my animals. In between putting the cow's milk and goat milk into my cheese press, I was chopping down trees in the cindersap forest, and when both cheeses were ready, I took them along with some fruit to the community centre where I finally completed the artisan bundle. With not much else to do for the rest of the night, I just headed back to bed. Day 70 was my first pumpkin harvest, so I gathered them all up, shoved what I could into my kegs, and made a fancy new stone chest to put the remaining pumpkins into. I popped by Pierre's to buy some more pumpkin seeds, but I ran out of money. So I headed back to the farm, I picked up my gold quality pumpkins to sell to Pierre, and used the money to buy the rest of the seeds I needed. And back on the farm, I planted them all. Now you may be thinking, Poxil, don't you need 5 gold quality pumpkins for the quality crops bundle? And to that I say, yes. Yes I do. I am dumb. But not to worry though, I'll just have to save 5 gold pumpkins for the next harvest. For the rest of the night I just chopped down trees for wood. I did find Abigail lurking about, who asked me if she should dye her hair. I tried what I thought was the nice answer, and I got some sass back. And you know, after what happened in the last 100 Days series, I think it's best that we stay friends, Abigail. Overnight I managed to get to level 10 farming, and I chose the artisan perk so that my pumpkin juice would sell for a lot more gold. Day 71, my corn was ready for harvest. Not only that, but with my fall crops grown too, I now had everything to complete the bundle. So off I went to the community centre to complete it. All I needed for the greenhouse now was the quality crops bundle. Of course it was the quality crops bundle. Why would I? I was rewarded with a bee house though, so I placed it down next to my lightning rods, which by the way, haven't produced a single battery. I have had 0 thunderstorms and it's getting ridiculous. All I can hope is that I get a thunderstorm soon and I can stock up on batteries then. That afternoon I started work on a pathway which leads in from the northern entrance of my farm in between my tree farms. I went with a stone walkway with grass in the middle, which I do quite like. I put some grass around the tree farm, which honestly looks way better than stone pathways. And that night I moved my lightning rods to be hidden behind the coop and barn. Out of sight, out of mind. Since they're bloody useless at the moment. It was the Stardew Valley Fair on day 72. I gathered up some items out of my limited range of stuff I had collected so far and headed into town. I set up my beautiful Grange display and started to get working on some star tokens. I played both the target game and fishing game before spending way too long trying to gamble in on the spinning wheel, but in no time at all I had enough tokens to buy my second star drop and a rare crow from the shop. Lewis then judged our displays and I ended up getting second place. Not too shabby for my first fair. And with that it was time to head home and to bed. Day 73, my animals had given me everything I needed to complete the animal bundle over at the community centre, so that's exactly where I headed. And I was rewarded with another cheese press which I placed next to my other one. I then crafted and used some fertilizer on the last of my baby trees because I was so close to having a full tree farm. Over in town I stopped by the special quest board and picked up Robin's project quest which tasked me to collect 80 hardwood. And since the secret forest had been expanded, I have a feeling this is going to be a piece of cake. So that's where I headed to chop some hardwood. I did also find a new forageable called Rafflesia. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. I don't know. It was getting dark, so I headed back to the farm and straight to sleep. Day 74, a bunch of oak resin was ready to be collected, so I made some more tappers, collected my oak resin, and tapped the untapped trees. I did this at the same time so they'd all be ready again at the same time. It's just more satisfying that way. Using the oak resin, I made a bunch more kegs and collected up my first batch of pumpkin juice, which I dropped into the shipping bin. Having burnt through my copper reserves making all of those kegs, I decided to head up to the mines where I spent the rest of the day farming for copper and resources. Day 75, my corn was ready for another harvest. Although I don't need them for anything, a little bit of extra cash never hurt nobody. My void chicken had finally hatched and I called her June. Look how cute and little she looks. Isn't she just so cute? I just want to give her a little hug. Being a Friday, the traveling cart was also here, and since Zeus was taking a vacation and giving me no lightning, I have no choice but to hope the traveling cart has some batteries for me, which it did not. I mean, why would it? I then made a seed maker and decided to turn all of my ancient fruit I had collected into seeds. That afternoon, I hit up the mines to farm for coal from dust sprites with my burglar's ring. But then halfway through, I suddenly remembered Robin's special quest to get 80 hardwood and did a quick 180 and headed on back over to the secret woods to chop some stumps. Afterwards, I dumped everything into my chest and called it a night. Overnight, I did hit level 10 mining and chose the prospector perk, which doubles your chance of finding coal. Good for the early game, but I'll probably change this later on. It was day 76 86 and I started my day saying hello to all of my animals before heading back into the secret forest to collect the last of the hardwood I needed for Robin's quest. Back on the farm, I went about clearing the debris in front of this bridge, and I added a nice stone walkway from the bridge onto the farm. Then, for the rest of the day, I dove down into the mines collecting copper and resources. Day 77, I had somehow forgotten about Robin's special quest yet again until today, so on the final day to complete it, I patiently waited outside before heading inside and dropping off the hardwood to her. Back on the farm, I added 4 chests to the hub area, which finished it off. I'm sure I'll find a use for these at some point. Although it's not very visible, I did add a small path from the main path to the fruit cave and then continued to work on my paths around the farm. I removed some paths from the furnace area, extended the pathway just above it, and added this long pathway from the tree farm all the way down to the southernmost farm entrance. And after a long day of path laying, I headed to bed. Day 78, another batch of pumpkin juice was ready for me to collect, so I collected it all up. Then I went back and re-kegged them with more pumpkins. I collected some maple syrup from my tree farm before paying Pierre a visit to get some instant profit from my pumpkin juice. Oh yeah, look at all that gold. With my newfound wealth, I took off to the community center where, in a baller move, I purchased every vault bundle, which will unlock the boss overnight. One of the rewards was a crystallarium, which replicates any mineral you put in it. So I decided to put in a diamond. That afternoon, I headed on over to the secret woods to collect more hardwood. Truth be told, I was wanting to get a stable, but unfortunately, I didn't have enough hardwood. I even found a morel, which if you've seen my first 100-day series, you know is the bane of my existence. But not this run. Back on the farm, I was experimenting with different materials to spice up the main pathways, and I was loving how the stone pathway was working with the stone walkway, so I kept it. Also, Samson and I had a cute moment together. I did some more pathway renovations around the tree farm and took away these paths, which makes it look way nicer. Before bed, I made the path to the fruit cave a bit bigger. It's hard to say, but trust me, I did. And then I called it in for the night. And overnight, just as expected, the Junimos performed a wonderful show number, which magically repaired the bus, meaning I could now visit the desert. I spent day 79 on a mission to complete the last fish tank bundle, the specialty fish bundle. Over in the mines, I caught a ghost fish. Over in the desert, I did some exploration, since this area has also changed from the expanded mod. Now, does this just keep on going? Like, is this endless or no, okay, it does stop. I met a woman named Sandy who seems very lonely, and I caught myself a sandfish. Back in the valley, I popped by the secret woods to catch the last fish I needed, a wood skip, and popped by the community center where I completed the last fish tag bundle. And then with not much left to do, I kinda just headed to bed. Day 80, I started out with visiting Clint to open some geodes I had been hoarding. I opened them all and I popped by Gunther to donate what I could to the museum, where I got myself another rare crow as a reward. I was still after hardwood for my stable though, so I headed off to the secret woods for a bit where I chopped down some stumps to get some. While I was there, I dug up an ancient fern seed. Now, I have no idea what this is, but I will definitely be planting that in summer. Up by the mountain lake, the glittering rock had been removed and Willie gave me a copper pan to go panning. You know, I'm sure this will come in handy for something, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Over at Robin's, I walked in on an argument about Robin's new hardwood bed. So of course I took Robin's side. Take that, Demetrius. And then I finally got myself a stable, which will be ready in 2 days. I even picked up 2 more morels on the way back home, so now I have no excuse not to have one. For the rest of the day, I kinda just ran around the farm, planning things out of my head. You know, as I do. The rain was pouring down on day 81. Was there lightning though? No. Of course not. I got rid of my ancient fruit plants as they wouldn't sprout any more fruit before dying in the winter, and I extended the pathway all the way to the main path. I then emptied my tappers of its oak resin and decided to go and collect wood. I plan on making a lot of kegs and I want to make sure I have sufficient wood. After hours of wood chopping, I came back home, made my kegs, placed them down by the others, and headed to bed. Day 82, another batch of pumpkin juice was ready, so I collected it all up and tossed in the last remaining pumpkins. Also, Robin had finished my stable, and I called my new friend Sally. To welcome her onto the farm, I gave her a lovely straw hat, and doesn't she look beautiful? I did have a small patch of land in front of my house, so I added a pine tree with some grass. You know, just to add a bit of pizzazz. Sally and I rode down to the traveling cart, which was selling nothing good as usual, before heading to the mines to farm for iron and resources for the rest of the day. Day 83 started out with my second and final pumpkin harvest. I put away my pumpkins into the pumpkin chest, and yes, I remembered to save 5 gold ones. But on my way to the community center, I forgot the Spirit's Eve festival was being set up, so I couldn't even get in. So instead I headed up to Robin's, where I splashed down and got myself a big coop upgrade. To fill in time before the festival that night, I dove down into the mines to farm for more iron and resources. But after a while, it was finally time to head to the Spirits Eve festival. I said hello to the Pumpkin King, bought myself a rare crow from the stall, and then dove into the maze, which by the way is different to the normal one, so it actually took me a while to figure out, which was super fun, I won't lie. I grabbed my golden pumpkin, I ran out of the maze, and I headed home to bed. Day 84 was the final day of fall, and I found an owl statue in my animal area. So I put it up on the hill overlooking my farm. Hopefully it won't give me any bad juju. With access to the community center now free with no events, I dropped off my 5 gold quality pumpkins and finally completed the pantry, which will give me access to the greenhouse from tomorrow onwards. I rode Sally down to Marnie's ranch where I stocked up on hay for the incoming winter season and got 2 heaters so my animals won't be cold. I then decided I wasn't a fan of the grass between my pathways as I was the stone paths, so I swapped it out, and honestly I'm pretty glad I did. I think it looks way better. And for the final time I reorganized my furnace area to look a little better. I popped by Pierre's to grab some grass starter, which I placed around my farm like my furnace area, by the fruit cave, and outside my animal area, and it was looking pretty good. I took away the extra layer of path around the furnace area, and it was perfect. That is the definition of trust the process. We got there eventually. For the rest of the night I rode Sally around the farm, somewhat planning out the final days of these 100 days in my head. And overnight the greenhouse was restored, all ready for me to use. It was day 85 and the first day of winter. I made sure all my animals were looked after before heading out into the valley. In town, I passed by the special quest board and picked up the Curious Substance quest, which tasked me to find ectoplasm in a slain ghost. I then visited the beach where I dug up a few snow yams and found a single crocus flower in the cinder sap forest. But I had at least one of each winter forageable, so off I went to the community center where I completed the last crafts room bundle. I found Krobus wandering around, so of course I followed him up to the playground where I spooked him, and in return he gave me a magnifying glass, meaning I could now find secret notes. Back on the farm, I planted my winter seeds as they're the only seeds you can plant outside in winter. Just before bed, while heading to the secret forest, I found another crocus flower, and inside the woods I kept digging up bearberries. I'm not too sure what they're for, but they look delicious. Back on the farm, I made 10 more winter seeds, planted them, and decided to light up my tree farm with some torches. Overnight, the Junimos danced their little hearts out. Actually, I don't know if they have hearts. But the bridge was fixed, and I now had access to the quarry. Day 86, another batch of pumpkin juice was ready to be collected, and after re-kegging some more pumpkins, I headed to Pierre's for some instant profits. While I was there, I got myself an apple tree sapling and an apricot tree sapling. Up at Robin's, I moved the greenhouse closer onto the farm for convenience reasons and got myself a big barn upgrade. Back on the farm, I checked out my new greenhouse and planted my apple and apricot trees. I then suddenly remembered about the wizard special quest I picked up yesterday, so off I went to the mines. Well, that went a lot better than I thought it would. With some time left in the night, I headed on over to the wizard and handed over the ectoplasm. I headed back home and called it in for the night. Day 87, I received a mini obelisk crafting blueprint in the mail from the wizard for my efforts yesterday, which was very nice of him. Over in town, I found Morris waving coupons around, probably because he knows he's going out of business soon if he took a look in the community center. And then it was off to the desert for my first skull cavern run. I was sure to be very careful as I descended through the caverns as I didn't have the best of gear, but I did manage to survive. I managed to walk away with a few iridium ore and even a rabbit's foot, which is something I need for the community center. After a successful run in the caverns, I went to bed and I dreamed about how awesome I am. It was day 88 and another batch of oak resin was ready to be collected. I only had the bulletin board left to complete in the community center, so I gathered everything I had and headed on over there. I handed in everything I had, completed the field research bundle, and I only had a few more things left to get to finish the community center. Back on the farm, I made a start planting my ancient fruit with some speed grow. Since I've had 0 lightning over the course of the last 88 days, I can't make any iridium sprinklers, of which I need 6 to fill up the greenhouse with ancient fruit. So I'd have to go back to watering them every day until I managed to find the materials to make the sprinklers. Like a peasant. Oh, and I also planted my rare seed because I forgot to do that. Whoopsies. I then popped by Robin's and got myself a silo. I love my animals, but I'm sick of feeding them every day because I'm lazy. And a silo with a deluxe coop and a deluxe barn lets you auto-feed your animals. That night I didn't achieve all too much, so I just headed to bed early. Evelyn paid me a visit the morning of day 89. Brave to be out in the cold, but hey, she looked happy. Anyway, she gave me a garden pot and a blueprint to make more, so hey, thanks Evelyn. To start the day, I watered my ancient fruit before heading on over to Pierre's where I bought the remaining fruit trees, and back home I planted them in my greenhouse. I then popped by Marnie's where I bought 2 new friends, Fred the sheep and Sir George the rabbit. Right after that, I finished tapping every tree in my tree farm and it was all done and finished. For the rest of the day, I cleared out debris from my other fenced area and ended up finding a hidden path that comes out beside the traveling cart. Very handy. Day 90, I was back to watering my ancient fruit, collecting pumpkin juice, re-kicking more pumpkins, and collecting copper and resources from the mines, which about sums up my day, honestly. Pierre showed up at my door the morning of day 91, letting me know about his stock for next year, which sounds pretty promising. With gold coming out of my ears now from all that pumpkin juice, I paid Marnie a visit to stock up on hay and get a new friend, Ron the pig. In my humble opinion, Ron is a fantastic pig name. And then it was back to the grind in the mines, collecting anything and everything I could get my grubby little hands on, which pretty much took up the whole day. Oh, I did pop by the Adventurers Guild where I met Alicia and picked up the hard hat for completing a Monster Slayer goal and slaying 30 total Duggies, which I gave to Sally, because you can never be too careful. Day 92, my winter seeds were ready to be picked, and I promptly turned them back into even more seeds, which I then planted again. Stonks, am I right? And I also watered my ancient fruit. I'm not going to include that in my daily recap anymore, because it's tedious, so just assume I'm doing it. But today was the Ice Festival, and more importantly, the ice fishing competition. I bought another rare crow from the traveling cart lady, and then it was time for the competition, which, and I don't want to brag here, I frickin' smashed everyone at. I received my winnings and I headed home. Day 93, I gave Sally my sailor hat I had won yesterday because why not? She looks amazing. My morning started with a few chores around the farm before heading to the museum and dropping off an artifact I had found a few days ago while in the mines. Over by the special quest board, I picked up the prismatic jelly quest, which tasked me to find and slay the elusive prismatic slime for its prismatic jelly. Now this quest has given me trouble before, and that is certainly not going to change this time. From days 93 to 95, I scoured the mines looking for this damn slime. But do you think I could find it? Absolutely not. The only other things that happened during this time was on day 94, I got myself a pond from Robin, and I got another batch of pumpkin juice. Aside from that, I was down in the mines going from floor to floor, hoping to see that color changing slime. But then, on day 96, I shit you not, the very first floor I picked, there it was. And there was only one thing left to do. Without delay, I rode Sally down to the Wizard, where I accidentally stumbled upon his basement library, and then I handed him the prismatic jelly. Afterwards, I did a little bit of snooping, which I probably shouldn't have. And back home, I tried to place my other prismatic jelly on the table, but it wouldn't let me. I then worked on some pathing around my new pond and made plans for where the next 2 were gonna go. I don't know what it is about these wooden planks around the ponds, but I don't know, it just looks so good. I kinda just mooched around the farm for the rest of the night, so I went to bed early. Day 97, I received the Monster Musk recipe for my work on completing the prismatic jelly quest yesterday, which is going to come in very handy when completing Monster Slayer goals. Up at Robin's, I took over some supplies and asked her to upgrade my house, and of course she said yes. I then, no joke, chopped down trees for the rest of the day. Day 98, I collected up my final batch of pumpkin juice, which I then dumped into the shipping bin and headed on down to the beach. I popped into Willie's to buy myself the iridium fishing rod and put it to use fishing out on the pier. I spent most of the day out here fishing, but just before bed I stopped by the traveling cart, who to no surprise has disappointed me once again. Day 99, my winter seeds were ready to be picked again. So I went along and collected them, turned them all back into seeds and filled up my crop area with them. I did stop by Robin's, but she wasn't there. I wanted to buy a couple of things, but I may have to come back another day. I passed by the special quest board in town and picked up the Juicy Bug quest, which tasked me with, you guessed it, killing bugs. Sally and I then waited patiently for the first night of the night market to open, and believe it or not, the traveling cart was selling batteries, and 5 of them. It's like a miracle. I took the submarine down to do some deep sea fishing and tried so hard to catch a blobfish, but it wasn't meant to be, unfortunately. I did catch quite a few midnight squid and spookfish though. Back home, I placed down 2 candy canes I had bought because you know, why not? I think they look great. But it was getting late, so I headed to bed. And finally, day 100. I did some chores around the farm and found Clint lurking about this boulder, but he was adamant he could move it and invited me back to his shop to figure it out. But maybe I'll save that for the next 200 days. But as is a tradition in all of my 100 days videos, on the final day I soaked in the spa and relaxed. I did pull myself to the night market once again to check the vendors, but they weren't selling anything good. And with that, I headed home and finished up the final day in this 100 days series. So there you have it, 100 days of Stardew Valley Expanded complete. You know, I'm pretty happy with how far I managed to get. This is a screenshot I took of the farm on day 100. You know, there's still a lot to do, obviously, but overall I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out. Also, in this bottom fenced area, I'm gonna fill it with pigs. And to reward the people who have made it this far, if you comment a pig emoji, I'll name a pig after you. We haven't seen much of the expanded content yet, I feel, so I look forward to seeing lots more of that in the next 200 days. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on the next 200 days of Stardew Valley Expanded. These videos do take a long time to make, so any support would be much appreciated. That being said, you're all wonderful people, so have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.